Hello, I'm Hannah Brandt with Community Alliance newspaper, and I'm here at the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservation Trust with David Koehler, who is the head, what is your official title?
Executive Director.
Executive Director of the Parkway. And I'm going to go ahead and ask him some questions. I have a few from our Facebook page as well. So, first of all, will you tell us a little bit about what you do at the San Joaquin River and what the Parkway is set up to do?
Sure. Well, the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservation Trust is a land trust nonprofit organization. We have three primary goals, which are conservation, education, and recreation. So our goal is to protect the special areas here along the parkway, to provide educational and recreational opportunities for people to enjoy it, and to do a lot of public outreach to make people aware of the river and build the stewardship base for tomorrow. So we measure our success by implementing the San Joaquin River Parkway Master Plan, which is over the years the three land use jurisdictions here in the Parkway Reach, which the Parkway Reach of the river is from Bryant Dam to Highway 99. It's a 23-mile section. And the communities have come together to develop and adopt in their general plans a Parkway Master Plan that calls for acquiring 6,000 acres of public land along the river to protect the floodplain and natural areas, and then to implement a multi-purpose trail system its entire length too. So toward that goal, we've now acquired a little more than 4,000 acres of public land, and we've built 7 miles of the 23-mile trail system. So our land trust works with a number of other agencies and nonprofits to help do this work. And we do a full range of land protection transactions, which are either land purchase or conservation easement. We restore lands. We are active in supporting the San Joaquin River Restoration Program. And then we have an active education and outdoor recreation program as well. I see today out here at the River Center we have 6th grade classes from Madera Unified that they're actually their teachers are pilots, and we have developing a new program with Madera Unified for 6th grade, and these are some of the first field trips under that program. So I see them heading our way, so we may have a few students descending on us here in a couple minutes.
Cool. Okay. Hey.
No, this is still a sycamore tree.
We have a cafe here if you'd like.
Yeah. All right, guys, watch out.
Okay. So now that we know a little bit about the Parkway and the work that you do here, anybody who's not living under a rock, maybe even people who are in America, know that we're living in a massive drought right now in the West, and it's hitting Central California particularly badly. It's the worst drought ever on record, and they're predicting that it will even perhaps be another 10 years of drought. I know that we've had past droughts that have affected the San Joaquin River as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the impact that the drought is having on the river this time around here?
Sure. The drought is stressing the use of water, and all of the municipal use, agricultural use, environment use. It really stresses that whole interrelationship. On the San Joaquin River, what took place last year was really abnormal in that to really understand how it affected the river, you have to go back to the contracts that the federal government made with the water users prior to developing Bryant Dam. And what took place in order to build Bryant Dam was the Bureau of Reclamation entered into contracts with downstream landowners in the Fireball de Los Banos area of the San Joaquin River. Those landowners gave up their rights to San Joaquin River water in exchange for a guarantee from the government that they would be delivered water out of the delta. And so what enabled Bryant Dam to be built again was that the downstream owners, and it's a group of water users that collaboratively are called the Bryant Exchange Contractors. They gave up their water rights in order to get water from the delta.
I know.
However, what they held on to was a right that said if for some reason the federal government couldn't deliver water to them out of the delta, that they had the right to call on water out of Bryant Dam. So in a normal year, the vast majority of water that is stored at Bryant is diverted and sent down the Bryant Kern Canal to South Valley and East South Valley, so all the way down to Kern County to irrigate land in the San Joaquin Valley that is south and east of here. That's what happens in a normal year, but last year the federal government couldn't deliver water to these Bryant Exchange Contractors, so the Bryant Exchange Contractors called on their right to take water out of Millerton Lake and have their water delivered to them via the San Joaquin River. So what actually took place here was that we had high flows in the San Joaquin River, flows that ranged 3 to 4 times what they normally would be in the summertime. They were flowing higher in order to deliver that water to the Bryant Exchange Contractors. So in a year of extreme drought, when you came out here last summer to the river and looked at the river, it was high water and it looked like we were in flood stage type of thing. But this year, our understanding is that it looks like that they will be delivered some water. Just how much yet, I don't think has been determined, but we may not have that condition this year. So when you ask about how the drought impacts the river, last year was just completely counterintuitive to what you might think. We actually had a lot of water in the river. That may not be the case. This year the reservoirs have been drawn down to incredibly low levels, and these last few weeks of the rainy season are pretty critical. What I think is on a lot of people's mind in the San Joaquin Valley is how it impacts the river restoration efforts, and something that is important to know is that the river restoration program has within it different designations of water years. So in a drought year, extreme drought like this year, the restoration program isn't receiving any restoration flows. So from the standpoint of competing with other water uses, the restoration program doesn't receive flows in a critical extreme drought year like this. That doesn't mean that obviously there's the overall concern about drought impacting it. But historically, and in developing the San Joaquin River Restoration Program, they went back as far as historical records were kept. to determine what type of hydrograph would be implemented in the restoration efforts and so forth. And there have been many years of drought in the past where the river didn't flow from year to year. So in some ways it is in keeping with sort of a very unfortunate but a natural rhythm of drought and wet years. It's the cycle that rivers are somewhat used to.
Okay. So there have been several water delivery proposals to try to ensure that there will be enough water for residential and agricultural consumption. I know last year there was one that didn't get bipartisan support. It didn't get the support of the Brown and the Obama administration, but they're trying to sort of rework it this year and get more bipartisan support for some kind of plan, since the reservoirs have been drawn down so much and so much groundwater has been pumped out. I don't know if that's something that you keep an eye on because of how it could impact the river. Maybe it doesn't as much, given what you just said. But have you seen any proposals that you think are worthwhile or reasonable that would actually help with the situation rather than hurt?
Sure. Well, so the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservation Trust is not directly engaged in many of the water policy issues on the statewide level, but we do track those things, of course, because it does impact the river, and we keep an eye on that. But there are some. Well, it's important to note in California, and particularly here in the Central Valley, that what happens in the Delta is critically linked to everything here in the Valley. It goes way beyond the Delta smelt issue. It's really a matter of an entire ecosystem that is collapsing or near collapse, and what do we need to do in order to ensure that it doesn't, and also what do we need to do in the Delta that can help continue to facilitate the Delta as essentially a vital water exchange delivery system to all of California. When you have the largest river in California, the Sacramento, coming in, and what was the second largest, the San Joaquin, coming into the Delta there, without flows in those rivers making it to the Delta, it just drastically impacts the Delta system. So all eyes on the Delta in terms of helping to improve California's overall water situation. But here on the San Joaquin, I think that there are water banking opportunities, and that's a situation where when there are wet years, to work out opportunities with both public and private to store that water in the ground so that it can be used in drought years like this. They've done a good job of that on the Kern River system. There's water banks, and in fact, you may read in papers from time to time, water districts down in Kern sell their water off out of basin to municipalities and so forth. Well, the reason they're able to do that is because they've developed the water banking on the river to store water underground in high flow years. So in the San Joaquin, there are opportunities. In fact, there's actually a good, significant funding that the San Joaquin River Restoration Program is putting into some development of water banks with down in the Los Panos area, and I think over the next decade or so we'll see more of that and have more infrastructure develop in that way. In fact, where we're sitting right now, there's the Sand and Gravel Company owns this piece of land, Vulcan Materials, and they're working with the San Luis Water District because Vulcan owns a 600-acre piece that sits strategically in between the Bryant Kern Canal and the California Aqueduct, and they would like to develop a water bank there to do exactly that, and that helps farmers in drought years. It helps the river in drought years. So I think putting energy into those type of solutions, we'll see more of that. And I think that's where the energy ought to be going forward.
Okay. So, what would you say is the biggest challenge for the River Parkway?
Yeah. Well, in terms of implementing the Parkway Master Plan and getting more people out on the land to enjoy it, and also to do more habitat restoration and so forth, our biggest challenge as a community going forward is to have the stewardship funding or the operation and maintenance type funding necessary. What we've seen here with the city of Fresno, of course, being the largest municipality, if you look at what happened to the city's budget during the recessionary years, there wasn't a large parks department to begin with, and it essentially was wiped off the map during the recession. And fortunately, within the last year, they've rehired a parks director, a fantastic guy, by the way, that the community is really fortunate to have, Manuel Molinito, incredible parks experience. So hopefully that'll start building back up. But our largest challenge going forward is to develop those kinds of basic safety maintenance funding to steward these lands, these public lands. And other than that, I think it's really just a matter of putting one foot in front of the next, getting some river access places implemented. But that stewardship funding is the critical piece to enable all that.
And you were saying that you have a new partnership with school districts to bring students here?
Yeah, so through our education program, right, we provide a lot of education opportunities to local school districts, and our current new program we're developing is working with Madera Unified School District, and they have a desire and need to bring their students on an environmental field trip for 6th grade, and so our staff is working with a really neat group of about a half dozen teachers and 6th grade teachers at Madera Unified, and then the administration of Madera Unified as well, to develop the curriculum for a 3-day trip. You know, in 6th grade, that's when you learn things like about ancient civilizations and water systems and so forth. So one of the days of field trips is up near Bryant, where there's a great place where kids can essentially sit on a bedrock mortar where our Native Americans, that was their home, and then overlook Millerton Lake and Bryant Dam, and then start to think about, okay, here's how we implemented water systems here in California. How does that compare to ancient civilizations and their developments of water systems? So what they're learning about in school with ancient civilizations and water systems, they actually can come out here and see what we're, essentially what we're doing today, or at least what we've done in the last several decades. And there's so many parallels to that. One of the things that I learned through all of that was in reading what the teachers and our staff developed is all the various uses of acorns in different cultures. For whatever reason, I'm thinking, okay, the use of acorns is unique to our Native Americans here, but no, not at all. I mean, acorns have been part of cultures for centuries and centuries.
That's interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that either. And I taught history. Not sixth grade though. Okay. And so I had a question from somebody on Facebook about salmon, and I don't know if that affects the San Joaquin River very much.
Well, there's the restoration program. Its goal is to reintroduce salmon, so we're doing a lot with that.
Oh, great. Yeah. So is that you want to explain maybe a little bit about what that is?
Sure. So the San Joaquin River Restoration Program was authorized by Congress in 2009, and it stemmed from a legal dispute between a group, an environmental coalition, and the water users and the government about the loss of the salmon run here on the San Joaquin. So here in Fresno, along the banks here of the San Joaquin River of Fresno, prior to Fryan Dam was one of, if not the largest spring and fall run Chinook salmon runs in California. Over hundreds of thousands of salmon would come up every year to spawn here in the San Joaquin. As we discussed earlier, when Fryan Dam was built and with the giving up of water rights and the whole change of the regime, that salmon run was lost. There's in environment or ecosystems that's called extirpated, when a species was there and it's no longer there in that spot. So the salmon have been extirpated from the San Joaquin River system here. And so the San Joaquin River Restoration Program has two goals. One of them is to reintroduce fall and spring run Chinook to the San Joaquin here. And the other goal is to do that in the least impactful way to agriculture and municipal supplies. So there's a lot of work to be done, and there's about 10 significant construction projects to remove fish barriers that have been built over the last several decades in the lower parts of the river to help salmon passage to come up. So the key components are put enough water in the river to make it a live river again, and then the second piece of it is to do these construction projects that enable the fish passage to work. And out of that, and in fact, we talked earlier about the sixth grade program, there's a lot of cutting edge fishery science that's happening here, because with the loss of the spring run on the San Joaquin, the spring run Chinook were no longer in the San Joaquin system. So the fishery biologists and the incredible minds that came together there to figure out what is the best genetic stock to tap, and how do you do that so there's a strong gene pool in the fish that we release and so forth. And the Department of Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and key scientists from groups like Trout Unlimited, they've all figured this out. And so we're in about the third year now of actually having salmon back in the San Joaquin River system. This year there were a little more than 500 fall run Chinook that were placed back here in the San Joaquin, and just earlier this month they brought 54,000 spring run Chinook fry from the Feather River that matched this genetic composition that I mentioned, and those fish were placed in the San Joaquin River below Fryan Dam in some special cages that are right in the river, and they were there for a couple of weeks to imprint on San Joaquin River water, and then they're being taken closer to the delta for release so they don't experience the mortality rates that would normally happen on their swim out. And so those will be the first spring run Chinook that can now go out to sea, and they're usually out to sea for 4 or so years, and that's when they grow to the length of about 3 feet or so. And so, in 4 years from now or so, we might actually have some salmon coming back naturally up to where they were imprinted. It's really exciting.
Yeah,
great. Exciting work.
All right. So the final question I have is about you. So you are moving on. You're going to be moving to the Sonoma area?
Sonoma Land Trust.
To the Sonoma Land Trust. You want to tell us a little bit about what you plan to be doing there, and what you said a little bit about what you hope will continue to happen here, but maybe you could say a little bit about that again.
Sure. Well, it's been a real privilege to get to work on the San Joaquin for 25 years and to work with all of the partners and incredible leadership here at the trust, Koehler and our board president, George. Tons of names.
Right.
But it's been a real privilege to get to work on this river, and for me it was just a matter of reflecting. Okay, I've 25 years. We should change executive directors at least every 25 years or something. So anyway, it just seemed like it was time. It was a good time for the organization to make a change with respect to the economy's improved now, and we're in a good place for a leadership change. So I'm really proud of our organization here. They're doing a nice job on the transition, and they're out searching for my successor. And so I had a good run left in me, and so I kind of launched myself out of the cannon and letting the group here know that, I thought it was time for me to move on, and then I went out and found a place to land, and met up with the Sonoma Land Trust, who had a great, incredible leader, Ralph Benson, who's retired, but he really built up the Sonoma Land Trust, and they're a county-wide land trust, and in a way, it's the same type of work. What is a new, exciting opportunity for me is to work in a landscape scale conservation where they are county-wide land trust. And in Sonoma County, you have it's a huge county, and it has several major ecosystems coming together. So it includes San Pablo Bay and the headlands from Bodega Bay up to the Gualala River, and then going east, you got the Mayacamas there that separate Napa Valley from Sonoma Valley, and all the foothill woodland, and so it's a great opportunity to learn something new and to take whatever expertise I have and help out Sonoma Land Trust. So I look forward to that.
Great. And I think I knew schools that went to the headlands quite a bit. The field trips for that sort of the same age group, 5th, 6th grade.
Was it through the Straw program?
I don't know. I know that some Catholic schools, but I think some public schools went too. They always really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that doing a program like this here will have the same kind of.
Yeah, and there's different partner organizations at Sonoma Land Trust that have some programs. I'm looking forward to figuring that out, like what's there today and how can we help enhance that.
Definitely. Yeah, the school districts are smaller up there too, so there's more, because we have the sort of behemoth. President Unified is so big. I mean, there's Madera, but the districts are a lot smaller up there. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much to Dave Koehler for talking to us today from the San Joaquin River Parkway and Conservation Trust. I'm Hannah Brandt with Community Alliance. Thank you for watching.